But then we also have a paid version called Cosmos Enterprise Edition. And with that, you get a whole bunch of extra stuff. You get user accounts and role-based access control. You get some of those commanding features I was talking about earlier. You get a set of plugins that have already built with integrated with different things like Keysight power supplies and the different ground terminals. You get a whole collection of extra stuff with Enterprise, and it's licensed to your mission. So if your mission needs to install it 100 times, cool. If your mission wants to put it on the cloud and on that computer over there, great. If you want to have 100 users or 1,000 users, fine. It's a very, very friendly licensing model. It's meant to help you succeed and be successful in your mission. And especially unique is even with our paid version, you get all the source code. So no one else out there does that. And that's part of our philosophy. Open in our name is very important. That's a big part of the philosophy of the company. Our documentation is open. All of our source code is open. Even the paid version it's not open source at that point, but it's open code. You get to see the code and you can modify it if you need to for your program. We really want open collaboration. We want to be working with you and trying to help you succeed.
Welcome back to the Small Sat Revolution, powered by GomSpace. I'm your host, Frank Felker. My guest today is Ryan Melton. Ryan is CEO of OpenC3 in Erie, Colorado. Ryan, welcome back to the Small Sat Revolution.
Thanks, Ray. Super awesome to get a chance to talk with you again.
I'm so glad to see you again. As I was last year, I remain very interested in what you're doing there with your open source command and control software. Let's talk about the fact that you're coming back. We met last year at Satellite 2024, and you're back again this year in Washington, D.C. in March with your open source command and control software. What's new with Cosmos since we last spoke?
Oh, a lot of stuff. So we basically do a monthly release cadence. So over the past year, we've had, I'd have to go look, but at least 12 or 13 different releases since we were there last March in DC. A lot of new features coming forward. Certain things would be like, particularly for our government customers, we put together a couple operations focused features. One of those is something called Command Authority. If Command Authority is where you can lock down control to a single device to a single user. So if you have, say, an ops floor and you want to make sure that your operators aren't fighting each other, you don't have someone accidentally commanding the satellite when you thought, hey, Ryan's should be in control of the satellite right now. Command Authority allows you to lock it down to a single user, to where only that user has the ability to command that device until they hand off, kind of pass the football over to the next operator to control it. That's one exciting feature. Along with that is something called critical commanding. Critical commanding is where it takes two operators to approve a command. Let's say you had something really important that you don't want to accidentally do, like deploy the solar arrays. I want to make sure that that only happens once and it's done at the right time. Well, operator 1 can send the command, and then operator 2 gets a pop-up that says, this command's waiting approval. Do you approve sending out that command? And it's just a way to add safety to the system and more control, that it takes two operators to release a command.
That's great. That's some very high level stuff. And it makes me think of the two people with two keys in the satellite, the missile silos with the nuclear codes down there. You got to have two people to say yes for something to happen.
It comes from that same kind of philosophy. I don't think we're being used in any weapon system.
You never can tell.
You never can tell. That's one of the things with being open source product is people are using our software all over the world, and I have no idea what they're doing.
That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that facet of it. We'll come back to the open source aspect in just a minute. You know, I asked you about what's new, but I really want to know sort of at a more fundamental level for people who may not understand what Cosmos can do. What exactly is the command and control software? What is Cosmos?
Yeah, so our typical use case is for people building satellites. Now, I'm going to say that as typical use case because it really is, that's what most of our customers are doing. Cosmos itself, I like to kind of call it it's more of a general purpose hardware control system, kind of taking a set of hardware and controlling it all with a common pane of glass, a common user interface. So for example, most of our customers, when they're building, say, a satellite, they've got a lab, and in that lab, they might have a Keysight power supply. They might have a spectrograph or some kind of multimeter. So basically some test equipment. Then they might also have like a simulator or maybe like a solar array simulator or a payload simulator. And then they've got whatever they're actually building. And that what they're building could be at different states. It could be a box, it could be a whole bus, it could be the payload, it could be the whole integrated satellite. So it's what you're building and everything around it. What Cosmos does is it controls all that. So it says, hey, power supply, turn on. Hey, simulator, go into flight mode. Hey, satellite, now I want you to point over this way. And Cosmos orchestrates that whole test environment and allows you to automate that and make it repeatable and log everything that happens for your tests. So that's the test, the INT type scenario. Then once you've got everything tested, it's past thermal vac, it's past all your environmentals, you're ready to go and launch. You get on the rocket, you get up into space, and then now Cosmos is talking to you, except through antennas this time. So we're talking through an antenna network like a KSAT or a Leaf Space or RBC Signals, Atlas, one of these ground terminal networks typically, or even the government ones like the SCN. Cosmos talks through that up to the satellite, and it's the same user interface you use for integration and test. Now it is your user interface for operating on orbit. It's basically a full life cycle tool for controlling hardware, whatever you're building.
It's truly amazing how many different features and functions that it has. And as I recall from when you demonstrated it for me on the show floor last year, it's browser based. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, it's all web based. So we are cloud native. So you can run in a public cloud like AWS, and that can be where your stuff is deployed. But one of our main advantages is that we're not a software as a service product. So you're not signing up online and entering your credit card. You're actually buying the software from us, installing it wherever you want. So that could be in the cloud. That could be on your desktop computer right next to the satellite you're building. And our customers do both. In fact, we have a very user-friendly licensing model. So of course, the open source is completely free. Do whatever you want. But then we also have a paid version called Cosmos Enterprise Edition. And with that, you get a whole bunch of extra stuff. You get user accounts and role-based access control. You get some of those commanding features I was talking about earlier. You get a set of plugins that have already built with integrated with different things like Keysight power supplies and the different ground terminals. You get a whole collection of extra stuff with Enterprise, and it's licensed to your mission. So if your mission needs to install it 100 times, cool. If your mission wants to put it on the cloud and on that computer over there, great. If you want to have 100 users or 1,000 users, fine. It's a very, very friendly licensing model. It's meant to help you succeed and be successful in your mission. And especially unique is even with our paid version, you get all the source code. So no one else out there does that. And that's part of our philosophy. Open in our name is very important. That's a big part of the philosophy of the company. Our documentation is open. All of our source code is open. Even the paid version it's not open source at that point, but it's open code. You get to see the code and you can modify it if you need to for your program. We really want open collaboration. We want to be working with you and trying to help you succeed.
And am I correct that it will run on off-the-shelf computers?
Yeah. And so, our whole company is based on MacBooks, so we're usually running it on different MacBook Pros. But any computer that I usually recommend at least 8 gigabytes of RAM and at least a couple cores, but I actually have it running on a little Raspberry Pi 4 sitting over on my desk. So we can go down to a 4 gig Raspberry Pi 4 is really pushing it. The 8 gig Raspberry Pi 4 is pretty good. Mm-hmm. And it makes an awesome kind of very small platform. One of our customers is running it completely on Intel NUCs, which are these little like 6-inch by 6-inch square little boxes. And they just have those distributed around in their different labs. And it makes for a really nice low cost system to run on just regular computing platforms.
So tell me, I can see where the open source aspect and especially the no charge version of the software would be very appealing to aerospace departments and universities. Have you had a lot of traction in that arena?
For sure. We've had a lot of traction of a lot of money that we make from those people, but there's a lot of different universities that are building their satellites, especially smallsats, CubeSats. A lot of different guys you'll meet at the SmallSat conference coming up in Salt Lake this year in Utah. They have a whole college floor. And if you go and talk to those guys, a good part of them will be using Cosmos to build their small sats. I know we're involved at ASU. I know we're involved at Purdue, and several other universities are using our software.
Can you tell me about some government agencies that are using your software?
Yeah, well, some of them.
What's that?
The ones I can talk about, I
Yeah,
can
right,
talk
exactly.
about. So we have presence mainly in kind of the defense realm, I would say. Definitely like Space Force is using our software, and we're
Hmm.
also within AFRL. They're doing a lot of different research and different projects with Cosmos. Um, I don't want to say too much going into the government things, but we're definitely in all spaces, including classified spaces. So our software has gotten through that authorization to operate. So we are in closed spaces and kind of contributing to the U.S. government and the defense.
That's great. I really like the whole, not just open source, but it seems like you have a very open mind as far as making it easy for people to engage with your platform. Where did that come from with you?
I've been doing software for a long time. This is my 24th year as kind of as a software engineer, even though I'm more of a manager, CEO, leader type guy now at this point. I still tech is really where my heart is.
Hmm.
I've been using open source software since it existed. I mean, I remember my dad and I would go to they had these things called computer shows, and they were like little trade shows. A bunch of people at tables selling RAM from their desks and things. And I would buy about the first copy of Doom was on a 3.5 inch floppy disk, right? And it was amazing, right? There's a saying with software that software wants to be free.
I've heard that. I've
It
heard that.
inherently
But
it
the
just
thing, I just want to stop you there because so many people push back against this statement. I wish I could remember. I remember that very clearly who said it, but I don't remember who said it. But I remember the phrase anyway. But by that, they didn't mean free as in no charge. They meant free to do whatever for everyone to access.
yeah, there's like free as in beer is one of the terms, right? And that's like just free. And then there's free as in rights. And those are kind of the two different philosophies in the open source community. Um, for our open source version, we actually use a license called the AGPL v3, and that is the free as in rights license. It says it's a copyleft open source license, and it says that if you get this code, that's awesome, and you can use it for whatever you want. It's just if you give it to anybody else, they also have to get those same rights. So you can't change it and then say, "Oh no, you can't use this." It's if you give it to somebody else with whatever changes you make, they also have to get the rights to do whatever they want with that software going forward. And so it is totally that philosophy, the not free as in beer, free as in freedom kind of philosophy of open source that we use with our open source model. And that is one of the reasons to buy the paid model is that if you don't want to have to share those rights of other people, you can do the commercial licensing and then you can keep everything you do proprietary. You don't have to worry about any of that.
Can you tell me any interesting applications that you can talk about or are aware of
Yeah.
where people are using your software with satellites to do cool stuff?
Yes. So, I mean, several different companies have already launched and are operating with the current version of our software. Some of the startups like Atomo Centurion are operating with our
Mm-hmm.
software. And that, if you go back to older versions of Cosmos, Capella is still operating their missions using our software. Blue Canyon does a bunch of stuff with it. And I'm actively working on getting those guys to upgrade to the newest stuff. One of the things with software is that once it's working for you, it can be hard to upgrade. It's like it's working, why mess with it? But there's lots of reasons to upgrade because mainly security patching. The older
Yeah.
versions are way out of date, and one of the reasons we do a monthly release is there's these things called CVEs. They're critical vulnerabilities, and those get posted continuously. We'll do a release, and then a week later, some other open source thing will have a CVE, and so now we've got a high CVE in our system. And so that's why we'll do another release and get that patched. And security is a never ending battle. And one of the benefits of hiring a company like us or going with a paid product is that you get all that security and maintenance done for you. Software is never done. Like you can't just be like, it's coded, yay. No, because security is one of the main reasons, and just tech changes. Everything's always changing, and it is a huge effort to keep stuff patched and up to date and just on the latest versions of things so that you have a secure product that's free of 0-day vulnerabilities.
I happened to reboot my Windows computer just before our interview today because I saw the little orange button pop up. And but I was holding my breath, hoping that it was going to still work, when it came back to life.
I hope the interview will work after this, after I reboot.
Yeah, I really thought about it, but I'm with you. Anytime there's an update, I update. But I've noticed that a lot of times, even just changes in the interface can be enough to prevent people from wanting to update because I don't know what I'm looking at now.
Yeah, and that's something definitely as our product has matured. This is the 19th year that we've been building this product. I started back in
awesome
2006. It's been a journey, and we're on the sixth major evolution of the product. Where was I going with that? It's a never-ending process to keep it up to date.
I was asking about people giving you pushback if there's any change in the interface.
Well, one of the things is keeping the product compatible is more and more important as we get more and more customers, right? As this product has grown and gotten just super popular, being open source is super helpful. But also even with our paid customers, they want to be able to upgrade and be fairly confident that nothing's going to break, right? Like just like when you did that reboot, you're like, hopefully my computer still works. It is becoming more and more of our goal to make sure that nothing changes, have as few breaking changes as possible. Now it fights my soul because it's like, I want to make big changes and I want to evolve it and I want to do crazy stuff. And it's just, you got to kind of slow down a little bit and make sure that you're doing that in a way that doesn't break anyone going forward, but you still can get that innovation in to keep the product moving ahead where I want it to go.
I can see that's got to be difficult for you because you've got all kinds of grand schemes, I imagine, in that mind of yours about what you want to do. But are people going to see the value? Are people going to want to engage? Or, is it going to be counterproductive from a business standpoint?
Well, from a business standpoint, that's a trade, right? Because new customers see the value. They're like, oh, that's awesome. I totally want that. Existing customers, usually we're already meeting their needs. And they're like, don't change stuff. Just fix the bugs and leave it alone. So it is
broke, Ryan.
It's conflicting. It's conflicting goals. But I've got a vision of where I want this product to go, and we are going to keep moving towards that vision. And we're making some big changes right now.
That's great. That's great. Now I noticed that you're back again at Satellite, at the SAT show, Satellite 2025 in Washington. What has brought you back? Obviously, you must have had a positive experience last year.
No, this is, I would say, one of the two conferences that everyone's at. And so with like 15,000 people, this one and Space Symposium and the following month are where really everyone's at. So our customers are all there to give us a chance to meet up with everyone. Also, particularly this conference, they really take care of us. We're in the startup pavilion. It's a great experience. It's a little bit cheaper, which is nice. And they also help setting up the booth. So the booth backdrop and the front part is all set up for me when we arrive. So when we show up there on March 11th or March 10th, it'll be all ready to go. And I've just got to set up my laptop and put out my flyers and we're ready to start exhibiting. So it's a great experience.
That's a tremendous benefit. And I wasn't aware of that previously. Well, we're just about out of time, but there's always a question I like to ask my guests before we go, which is there a question I should have asked you that I haven't? Or maybe a thought that's come to you as we've been talking that you'd like to share before we go?
I would say just be looking out for what's coming forward. I hinted that we're doing a lot of innovative stuff coming forward. I've got a new feature that's going to be out probably in about a month called Cosmos Notebooks. Some software people have heard something called Jupyter Notebooks. It's going to be kind of like that. It's also going to be kind of like an e-procedure type product where it's going to be a document with a set of steps, except it's going to be a living document. You can see your telemetry data. You can click a button and send a command. You can take notes. You can just have some text and descriptions. So think of a Word document that's interactive. That's going to be coming probably in Cosmos 6.3, 6.4-ish here in a month or two. And we're also adding an app store. So coming, and one of my engineers just showed me a demo of it this morning. So that's coming even sooner, probably within a few weeks. We'll have an app store where you can discover Cosmos integrations that has already been built. And also I think it's going to be a great way to build the Cosmos community to where people are going to be able to publish their own Cosmos plugins and discover them and share them with the world. And kind of more of that open freedom, open source part is kind of building that community and making the tool that everyone can contribute to and just make the world a better place.
Those are two pretty important upgrades that are coming.
Yeah, I think so.
Ryan Melton, CEO of OpenC3. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, no problem. It was great, and I appreciate being on the show again. Thanks very much, Frank.
Thanks again to Ryan, and thank you for joining us. Until next time, I'm Frank Felker saying, I'll see you in space. The SmallSat Revolution podcast is powered by GomSpace. With platforms, components, systems, and services to meet every SmallSat requirement, GomSpace brings their innovative technologies and a flight heritage of over 2,000 successful deployments to your next mission. GomSpace, leading the SmallSat revolution. Learn more at gomspace.com.